All right, so we're doing this series. It's called Living Your Best Life. And we've just been, since the beginning of the year, going through and studying the book of John. And we're in chapter 9 today. Last week, we were in chapter 8, and we talked about the woman. There was a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. And I don't know how they caught her, what that went down like, but they brought this woman because the religious leaders were trying to win an argument against Jesus. So they brought this woman and they threw her down and embarrassed her and all of this. And then so Jesus goes, they all had rocks and they were going to stone her to death. And Jesus goes, okay, whichever one of you is without sin, you can throw the first stone. And he got down on the ground and started playing tic-tac-toe in the sand, in the dirt. And when he stood back up, they were all gone. And they dropped their rocks and they left. And Jesus goes, where'd they all go? Wasn't there anybody here to throw a rock at you? And she said, nope, no one. And he goes, well, neither do I condemn you. He goes, go and sin no more. And I talked about that last week. It's important for us as Christians to have a balance between grace and truth. We need to have grace with people, but that doesn't mean that we lower our standard. We're not saying anything goes. Jesus didn't condone this woman's behavior because that was a horrible thing that adultery just creates a lot of problems in families and it destroys. That's what sin does. And so Jesus was like, I'm not condemning what you've done, but I'm also not going to throw rocks at your head. There was forgiveness for that woman, just like there's forgiveness for us. So that's good. And then the point is that we're supposed to then turn around and extend grace to other people. So today we're in John chapter 9, and if you got your Bible or if you sermon notes, we're going to go through this in John chapter 9. I'm going to go back through starting in verse 1. Okay, are you ready? This is an incredible story to me. In fact, this may be my favorite story in the whole Bible, but for maybe different reasons than what you might think. But I love this story. Let's just go through it. In verse 1, it says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Verse 2, teacher, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it the result of his own sins or those of his parents? Now, this is a very interesting question to me, because did you pick up on the details? So they're walking along, and there's this guy, he's blind. And I don't know how old he is, doesn't say, but his whole life he's been blind from birth, okay? And so the disciples probably knew this guy. They knew he'd always been blind. And so they had the question in their mind was, Jesus, why is this guy blind? Like, did he do something wrong, or did his parents do something wrong? Like, there was a cause and effect in their mind, right? It's crazy because you think about it, like, what could he have done before birth, right? I mean, maybe karate kick his mother's stomach when he's inside the womb. Like, women in here, you've all experienced that when you're pregnant. The baby's just kicking you. I don't know if that's worthy of, punishing someone with blindness. I don't think so. But it's just, it's crazy. Like, the baby, before they come out of the womb, they haven't done anything deserving of punishment, right? Now, here's what I want you to understand. I just want to camp here just for a few minutes because I feel like a lot of people have this issue. It's an interesting thing. What they're asking is, why do bad things happen, right? And why do bad things happen to good people? Now, where this comes from, and I bet there's a lot of people in this room there's like a cause and effect with you too. So there's a lot of people in the world. This is like a human nature thing, but it's wrong to feel like this. When you look at somebody and think because they're having a rough go at life, because they're blind, or they were born with a deformity, or they're born poor, right? Then that means that there's something wrong with them. That means, here's what a lot of people think. A lot of people, and you probably wouldn't even say it, but when you speak on these things, it's just intuitive about this, that you feel like God is punishing those people. For some reason, you try to figure out why. You can't wrap your head around it. But you think, here's how a lot of people operate. They look at people who are rich and people who are healthy, and they just automatically assume that God's blessing is on them. Like they're protected, like God, they're favored by God. And these people who were born in a third world country, or because they were born with a deformity of some sort, God's favor is not on them. And that's a fallacy. I'm just telling you, that's not how God works. That it's not that if you're sick, you're being cursed. I mean, I know lots of people when whenever something happens, when there's cancer, people start to think, there's cliches and people try to say the right thing. But so there's just some things that are inexplicable. Like, I don't know why you're going through what you went through. I know this. I know, like when we talk about being favored, I have this funny thing with my wife, where we talk about that I'm one of God's favorites. Because I do. I feel like that. I feel like out of all of the world, I'm one of God's favorites. In fact, I've said this. I've said that if God has a refrigerator in heaven, my picture's on it. I'm not I'm not a honor roll student, so it's not that. No, but I feel like that. But listen, your picture would be on it too. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not special. I'm not, there's a lot of, God has been really good to me, and me and my wife joke around that I'm one of his favorites. But I'm not, God doesn't favor me more than he favors you. If he does have a refrigerator, your picture's on it. I guess it's a big group picture with billions of people on it. I don't know what it looks like. But God loves you just as much as he loves me. But we sometimes look and go, here's how some people look at things. Some people look this goes all the way back to the Old Testament. If you read some of the prophets in the Old Testament, they used to say stuff like, God, I'm paraphrasing, but God, I worship you, like I follow you alone, and everyone else is not. Like, everyone's following false gods. So why am I suffering? Why am I poor? Why are our people, why are the Israelites, feels like under punishment when the Babylonians, so God used King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians to oppress the Israelites. It's not because he liked Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians better. It's not that his favor was on them and he didn't like the Israelites. It's just that, so sometimes I can't, he was actually using that in this situation to teach a lesson. But there are other times where the prophets would go, this person, like David was like this person's prosperous and he hates you, God, and I'm trying to serve you with all my heart, and I'm having a rough go at it. Like there's people in this room that I know that love Jesus with all of your heart. There's people that I know that go to our church and you love God with all of your heart, and you struggle to pay your bills. Or maybe, you've raised your kids in church and now your adult children are just not following God. And you're just looking and you're like, what is going on? Why are these things happening to me? And then you look at other people, you're like, why am I poor? And these people, you look at Bill Gates, who hates God, wants nothing. He's got billions of dollars. And if it'll drive you insane because there is no answer. Like, you can't get into the mind of God. Like, why is he allowed to have billions of dollars, or other guys have billions of dollars and they just waste it on frivolous stuff? Elon Musk wants, going out in space and stuff, or whatever, just crazy stuff. They don't want anything to do with God. Meanwhile, you are trying to live for God and you're struggling. And I don't have if you're looking for an answer, I don't have the answer to you. I'm just saying life doesn't work out the way that you want it to. There's a story in the Bible about Job, and most of you guys know this story. So Job, this is one of the earliest stories in the Bible, even though it's not found at the beginning. And so Job was a blessed person. Like, Job had 10 kids. Job was the wealthiest person on earth at that time. So he would have been, in that day, like a billionaire. But he also loved God with all of his heart. And so the Bible says in Job chapter 1, it talks about how that Satan went into the presence of God. And God starts bragging on Job. And God goes, have you noticed my servant Job? He's a man of complete integrity. And Satan goes, well, okay. He only serves you because you have blessed him, because he has an abundance of blessings. He's got all this money. He's got livestock. He's got all this stuff. And Satan goes, you let me take that away from him and see if he doesn't curse you to your face. And God says, all right, you can test him. So God allowed him to be tested, which is crazy. I'm told God, I don't need to be tested. I will probably fail, so don't brag on me. So that's what happens. And Satan, in one day, Satan went out and killed all of his kids and took all of his livestock, every possession he had, took it all in one day. And people just kept coming to him. Hey, all of your animals are dead. Hey, your house is burned down. Hey, the last one, hey, all 10 of your kids are dead. And he's sitting there going, what the heck? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? Right? Because God didn't tell him what the deal was. Well, it opens up in chapter 2, and it says, and then Satan goes back to God, and God's like, he passed the test. Did you see that? And Satan goes, well, he goes, you let me take his health from him, and let's see, and I'll show you. He's going to curse you to your face. And God goes, okay, you can take his health from him, but I don't want you to kill him. So he went out and he struck him with boils. And it says when it was all said and done that he was sitting around the campfire with covered in boils, and he was taking the pieces of broken pottery and scraping the boils off. This is a nasty, nasty scene. And he was, I don't know if you ever had a boil before, but they're excruciating. You know, they just hurt so bad. And so he was in all this pain, and then his wife is there, and she goes, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to maintain your integrity? Why don't you just curse God and die? She's like, just shake your fist at God, and he might kill you and put you out of your misery. And Job said, we're not going to just accept the good things from God or in life and then never the bad things. He goes, this is part of life. And Job had a great perspective on that. And then, which Tim Hawkins has got a funny thing. He's a comedian. He's got a funny thing. He's like, God took everything from Job, but he left his wife. And Satan was like talking to some of the demons, and they were like, well, why'd you leave his wife? He was like, trust me, I know what I'm doing. You know, so anyways, it's just that's a whole different sermon, but marriage counseling. But anyway, so and then after that, so there's Job. Satan took everything from him, including his health, and now he's sitting there discouraged, and he's got some friends that show up to come and try to encourage him. And they show up and they sit around the campfire with him, and for days they just sat there in silence, which is probably what they should have did. You know, they should have never opened their mouth, because in the end, Job called them miserable comforters is what they were. Because when they started talking, they started pointing their finger at him and going, Job, we know that you sinned. We don't know what you did, but you did something. And everything was taken from you. Your body was stricken with a disease, and your kids are all dead because you did something to sin against God. Now, what did you do? And Job's going, believe me, I've sought the Lord. I don't know what I've done. But what a horrible thing to say. You know what I mean? Like, what? Even if it were true, like what a horrible friend to insinuate something like that. And by the way, it wasn't true. It wasn't the result of anything Job did. It was just, that's his life. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that sucks. Life sucks at times, and there's choices that you have. So right. So we look at. I deal with a lot of people in recovery. I'm in recovery. And so what are your choices when life just caves in on you? You have two choices. You can just roll with it and say, you know what, I'm not going to go out and get high today. Or you can just go, screw it. I'm going to go get high today. I'm going to get drunk. And then you're making things worse. So you're going to, but just because you go get high and drunk, did that take away the problems? No, they're still there. So there's a better way to handle these things. And it goes back to just believing that God is in control. Let me show you this in verse 3. Back to the story. What Jesus is trying to teach I don't know what, it sounds like I'm in an echo right here, so I'm going to move over to the side. But what Jesus is trying to teach the disciples, so they walk by, and they're like, there's a man born blind. They go, was this guy born blind because of something he did or something his parents did? And Jesus is going, it's not how life works. Like, I don't know where you got that from, but look what he says. He goes, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. He was born blind so the power of God could be seen in him. All of us must work quickly to carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent me, because there is little time left before the night falls and all work comes to an end. Now look what he says in verse 5. He says, but while I am still here in the world, he says, I am the light of the world. Now, let's just talk about this for a minute. I got 4 things I want you to write down. These are, in your notes, it says, why do bad things happen? But what a lot of people would frame it as, why do bad things happen to good people? You probably hear that all the time. I bet there's people in this room, you might have asked that question before. Why is it that bad things happen to good people? Why is it that there's people I know that go to church all the time and they're trying to raise their family, they're doing the right thing, and then there's evil people out there that got more money than they know what to do with, and they hate God, they don't want nothing to do, and they don't ever do any good with their money. Why is that, and why do we have to suffer? Okay, so let's just talk about that. Why do bad things happen? Number 1 is all bad things are a result of the sin. You just have to understand this. This is a biblical principle. If you don't grasp this, you will never understand God's ways. But all things are the result of the fall. So what's the fall? Going back to the book of Genesis, God created Adam and Eve and placed them in the garden, and it was perfect conditions. There was no sin, there was no death, no suffering, none of that. No funerals, no cancer. And then what happened? God said, I don't want you to eat of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The day you eat that fruit is the day you will die. Basically, you're bringing sin into the world by doing that. And then what happened? One day, the woman messed it up for everybody. Amen. Is there any guys in here that would give me an amen? Right? No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't like Satan, the serpent came to the woman, to Eve, and tempted her, and she ate, and then she gave it to her husband, and he ate. I'm not picking on. Like, if you've never been here before, people are like, you're a chauvinist. It's just jokes, people. There's just jokes. Don't come up and slap me like Will Smith. Anyway, so mainly because I'm not just going to stick my head out there and let you slap me. I'm sorry. We're probably going to rumble up here. Anyways, that's a different thing. But it's the result of the fall. And when Adam and Eve brought sin into the world, now from generation and generation all the way to us, now we live in this place where bad stuff happens. There's murders and rapes, and your stuff gets stolen, and cancer happens, and your loved one dies, and all this stuff happens, and you're trying to wrap your head around it. You're trying to figure it out, and it just drives you nuts because I don't know why stuff happens. I can't, I felt like Job's friends before at times. Like, I'll go visit someone in the hospital, and I'm just like, sometimes I just keep my mouth shut, and I just pray with them because I don't know what to say. And I think sometimes people wanted to ask me, Pastor, why is this happening? I don't know. I'm not God. I hate that this is happening to you, but I don't know. Bad stuff happens to me too. It happens to all of us. We live in life. So what are your choices? So if you're a person that just shakes your fist at God and says, I hate that we live in this world. I don't want anything to do with God. Okay. Can I just tell you, God's going to be just fine. God doesn't need your approval. I think people think that. Oh, I'll get back at God by cursing his name. He's fine. He doesn't need your approval or my approval. Now, he wants my relationship. He wants that God loves me, and he wants to have a personal relationship with me, and it's awesome. But, he's okay. And I just believe that he's good. Do I question him at times? Do I go, God, why'd that happen? What? This person didn't do anything wrong. And he just chooses not to tell me. I'm just not that important. I don't know. I think someday when we die and we go to heaven, I think you probably ask God whatever question you want, and it will make sense. But there will be, I operate under the assumption that God is good, and there's nothing that we may question it now, but when we get to heaven and we go, okay, I see what God was doing, it's all going to make sense. Let's go on. Number 2, some things are some bad things are just the result of my bad choices, right? So let's just talk about that. Hey, some of the stuff that's happened in your life that's bad, you made a bad choice, or me, okay? I'm not trying to pick on you. There's sometimes I make a poor choice, and then I'm like, why is this happening? And I think God's like, because you did something dumb. You know what I mean? Stop doing dumb stuff, and bad stuff not going to happen. Now, that's not always the case, but sometimes there is a cause and effect. If I choose to do the wrong thing, yes, bad things are going to happen. Now, here's what D.L. Moody was a preacher from 100 years ago, and he said this. He goes, if I could kick the person most responsible for my problems, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. I like that. That's one of my favorite quotes because, look in the mirror first. There's a lot of stuff that I can't control, but I can control my actions. Now, here's the other one. Number 3, some bad things are the direct result of someone else's bad choices. You think about, this happens all the time with collateral damage. Somebody goes to a bar and they have a few drinks, and then they decide to get in their car and try to drive home. And on the way home, they had a head-on collision and kill a family. And it's like, that family didn't deserve that. That family, what the heck? Well, it's a result of the fall, and it's a result of this person's poor choice. They knew better than to get in a car while drinking, right? So you can't blame God. I feel like God's up in heaven sometimes going, why are you blaming me? You did that to yourself. You chose wrong, or you did that to your poor choice affected other people. Don't blame me for that. So I think sometimes he gets a bad rap. And then this next one, this may not make you happy, but number 4 is some bad things just have no human explanation. I can't explain it to you. I could sit up here till I'm blue in the face and go, well, here's why stuff happened. I don't know. Some things just have no rhyme or reason. Let me give you a quote from Tony Evans. Tony Evans is a preacher on the radio. He's got a pastor in Texas. He's a pastor in Texas. And he says this. He goes, God is in control. So whenever something bad happens to you, either God sent it or God allowed it. Either way, he has a purpose for it. And our job is to ask, God, what are you trying to show me through this? That's really the best choice right there. That's really your only choice, to act out in a negative way or just say, God, I don't like this, but what are you trying to show me? God either sent it or he allowed the bad thing, and so you just have to ask, what is he trying to show me? All right, let's go back to this story, okay? Verse 6, so this is the story about Jesus walks up and sees this blind guy. And this guy's been blind since birth. Now, this is why this is probably my favorite story in the Bible. It says, then, talking about Jesus, then he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. He smoothed the mud over the blind man's eyes. So I just want to stop right there. That's just, it's a crazy story. If you could be a fly on the wall, or if you could have been there that day. Jesus walks up, there's this blind guy, and he's been blind since birth. And Jesus walks up and he grabs some dirt and he spits in it. Now listen, I don't know how much, I thought about giving everyone a handful of dirt today as you came in, try to make some mud, because I'm just telling you, so I'm taking some liberties here as I just look at the Bible, but it wasn't just a quick little spit like that. That ain't making mud. I'm just telling you. Jesus hawked a loogie. That's what I'm telling you. Like that. So don't get mad at me. I'm not. Well, that's probably blasphemous. But listen. So Jesus sees this guy. He reaches down, grabs some dirt, and he goes like this. He goes like that. That. Just hearing that makes you guys cringe. Some of you guys cringe with. You want to have some fun today? Okay. Go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and put in Michael Todd spits on man's eyes, something like that. So there's a pastor in Oklahoma. He's got a big church in Oklahoma, and he had a guy. He was preaching on this passage, and to do a visual illustration, he had a guy, big guy too, came up on stage and goes, "I want you to close your eyes," and he had some mud and he hawked a loogie, and when you can see. Now I asked my staff, I sent them the video. I said, "Can I show this on Sunday morning?" And all of them said no. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyways. But I'm not going to do it because some of you guys would freak out. Some of you guys would be creeped out and you'd throw up. But you want to watch it? No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to watch it. But you go on YouTube and just put it in. His name's Michael Todd. Now, he spits this green phlegm stuff in his hand. And he starts to make, I know, it's gross. And then they're showing it. And he's going like that. He spits it in his hand. And it's showing the other guy, and this guy's just standing there just going, I know this dude ain't going to wipe that on my eyes. And he walked over, and he wiped it, he wiped it on the guy's eyes. And people passed out. There were people throwing up in the crowd. People left, and the next week he had to get up and apologize. He had to make a public apology. And I was like, yeah, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to cover it. Anyways, I thought about doing that, but I thought, no, we're not going to do that. So you can go watch the video online on YouTube. But just think about it. Think about that story, okay? Think about if you're the disciples. The disciples are standing there, and Jesus reaches down and grabs some dirt, and they're like, oh, I wonder what he's going to do here. And then they see him, and they're like, what is he doing? Has he got a cold or something? And he spits in his hand, he makes mud, and he wipes it on the guy's eyes. And they're just like, what would you do? If you saw somebody do that, what would you what is going on here? Why are you doing that? Imagine if you were the blind guy. You don't know what's going on. You're just sitting there blind. Most people, I can't prove this, but most people who have an ailment, most blind people, have a heightened sense of hearing, right? So this dude's just standing there or sitting there, and all he hears is Jesus grab some dirt. He's like, that sounds like dirt. And then he hears like that, and he could probably hear the mucus in the back of his throat. I'm just telling you, it's disgusting, right? And then he hears him spit it out. And this guy's blind, and he's like, I don't know what's going on here, but that doesn't sound right. And then Jesus wipes it on his eyes. And he's like, oh my gosh. Can you just imagine if you're the blind guy? That'd be crazy. I call him the blind dude. Anyways, it's an amazing story. So one of the questions that I've asked about this is why did Jesus do that, right? Now you might come up afterwards and go, I don't think he hawked a loogie. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But in my mind, he hawked a loogie. And he spit enough in his hand that he made mud, and he wiped it on it. So the question is, why? And I'm like, I don't know why. I just know Jesus did some weird stuff. So let me show you some other weird stuff that he did. Here's another passage in Mark chapter 7. It'll be on the screen. Mark chapter 7 in verse 32. Just listen to what he did. It says, a deaf man with a speech impediment was brought to him, and the people begged Jesus to lay his hands on the man and heal him. Verse 33, Jesus led him to a private place away from the crowd. He put his fingers in the man's ears, then spitting onto his own fingers, he touched the man's tongue with the spittle. And he looked up to heaven, he sighed and commanded, be opened. Instantly the man could hear perfectly and speak plainly. I read that and I'm like, I don't know. Like, he put fingers in the guy's ears, and then he took one finger out and went, spit. I don't know what it is with him and spit, but this is his chosen way to do it. Now listen, the blind dude, like, we don't have any record of him ever doing that again, making mud. We don't ever have another record of him I don't know, I think he was just versatile, you know. I think he just liked doing different stuff. I really kind of think that, I've heard people say the Bible's boring. I'm like, I don't know what Bible you're reading, but when I read it, I visually see hawking a loogie, and I'm just like, that comes alive for me. Anyways, so I don't know why he just liked to do stuff differently. So maybe it's for our entertainment, so you don't think the Bible's boring. Anyways, let's go back to this story, the blind dude, okay? It says, he told them, go and wash in the pool of Siloam, which Siloam means sent. Now listen, this is probably, I would say, thank you, Captain Obvious. Like, you just wiped green phlegm in my eyes, and you don't think I'm going to wash it? That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going over there and washing this off, right? And it says, so the man went and washed, and then he came back, what? Came back seeing. It's an amazing, and I know I'm taking some liberties with this, and it's gross and all of that, but in all seriousness, this is an amazing miracle. This man was blind his whole life. Now think about this. His blind his whole life, never saw a person his whole life, and then he was healed, and he opens his eyes, and who's the first person he sees? Jesus. How cool is that? Wouldn't that be cool? To almost makes it worth being blind your whole life, to open your eyes and see Jesus, but I still don't want to be blind. I can only imagine what that would be like. But what an amazing thing. Verse 8 says, his neighbors and others who knew him as the blind beggar asked each other, is this the same man, that beggar? Some said he was, and others said, no, he surely looks like him, though. And the beggar kept saying, I am the man. Like, right, they're having a conversation in front of him after he could see, and they're going, this looks like that blind beggar. And they were like, nah, he just kind of looks like him. And he's like, hello, I'm right here. He's like, I'm not deaf, I was blind. I can hear everything you're saying. And he was like, it's me, I'm the blind beggar. I don't know what his name was, but I just thought that was interesting. Now, if you're taking notes, I want to give you a couple things. No, this one right here, someone who has had an encounter with Jesus is different. And I probably should put the word always different. Because you cannot tell me that you've had an encounter with the creator of the universe and your life doesn't look somewhat different, right? There's some people are radically different, other people a little bit different, but you can't tell me that you had an encounter, that you met Jesus Christ and nothing was changed about your life. I would just say you're probably mistaken. Like, I don't know what Jesus that you think you're following, but when you have an encounter with the real God of the universe, your life is different. It's going to be noticeably different about you. All right? Let's go on. Verse 14. I'm just going to finish out the story. It says, now as it happened, pay attention to these details. Now as it happened, Jesus healed the man on the Sabbath. You know what day that is? That's Saturday. They weren't supposed to work on the Sabbath. The Pharisees were trying to get Jesus in a trap, so they saw that he healed this guy on the Sabbath. And then they just go on and they're giving Jesus, I'm going to skip through some of this. It says there was deep division among them. Let me just ask you a question. If you were the blind dude and Jesus came up and was going to heal you, would you go, no, wait, before you hawk that loogie, it's Saturday. Don't heal me on the Sabbath. You don't care about that. In fact, if you're blind for your whole life, you probably wouldn't even care that he wiped a loogie on you, to be honest with you. I would be like, you can wipe whatever you want on my eyes. If I can wash it off and see, I don't care. But people get hung up on that. The Pharisees were hung up on the fact that this was a Sabbath. And I don't think this dude cared. I wouldn't care. You wouldn't care. Like, are you kidding me? In seeing the miracle, that's what you care about? What is wrong with your heart if you're just concerned about the details about that? There's something crazy about that. People do that, though. Let's go on in verse 17. It says the Pharisees once again questioned him. So they brought this man in, and I'm just going to skip through some of it. But they brought him in, and they were like, how did you get healed? And he was like, I don't know, some guy named Jesus. Like, he was like, I don't know who he is. Some guy named Jesus hocked a loogie and made mud, and he wiped it on my eyes, and I went and washed, and I came back seeing. And they didn't believe him, so they went and found his parents. And they said, is this your son? They go, yep, that's him. They go, was he born blind? They said, yep. And they go, well, how was he healed? And they were like, that I don't know. You'll have to. They go, he's old enough. You should ask. They were scared of them, of the religious leaders. So they were like, you should go ask him. And they went back to him, and they said, now tell us how you got healed. And he was like, all right, for the 27th time, I met a man named Jesus, and he healed me. And they go, and this is what they said. They go, we know Jesus is a sinner, and therefore can't heal you, and he's not the Son of God. And in verse 25, just go to verse 25. Here's what he says. He goes, I don't know whether he's a sinner or not. The man replied, but I know this, I was blind, and now I see. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that great? That's the amazing grace. I was blind, but now I see. Now look, this man was a beggar. You know, he was blind since birth. He had no Bible college degree. He had never prepared a sermon. He had never taught Sunday school. He didn't know anything about theology. He didn't know anything about religion, really. But what he knew was his testimony, right? He goes, I was blind, and now I see. Okay? And I want you to write this down if you're taking notes, okay? Living your best life means that your life was changed by Jesus, and you share that with others. Those two are inseparable. You cannot tell me that your life has been changed by Jesus and you don't want to share that with somebody? Now, I know there's people in this room, you're terrified about sharing your faith with somebody because you're going, man, if I talk to somebody about God and they might ask me a question I don't know, that's okay. I think God can handle it, you know? Because my pastor used to tell me this. He was like, you need to share your story with people. And I go, and then I would come back to him. I'm like, but they're arguing with me. They're telling me there's no God. And he was like, well, he goes, they can't argue with a changed life. So personally, I have no interest in arguing with people. I don't engage with people online, on Facebook, Twitter, none of that stuff. I just don't do it. I just try to tell them what God's done for me. If they're not into that, then that's fine. You don't have to be into that. But you can't argue with my changed life. And so here's what I want to do. I want to give everyone some homework this week. All right, ready? Aren't you glad you came to church to get some homework this week? I want everyone in here who says that you're a follower of Jesus, I want you this week to go out and share your story with somebody. Now, that might terrify some of you. You're like, I can't do that. I can't tell people about Jesus. Look, it can be simple things. It could just be, it could be putting a sign in front of your yard that says, come to Easter. It could be taking one of these invite cards and giving it to your coworker and say, hey, would you be my guest on Easter? They might just show up with you, and God might change their life. Or you might just go, somebody's got someone in the hospital, and you just say, hey, I'll pray for you. And then they might go, oh, do you go to church? Are you a person of faith? And then you just say, I'm not saying you have to preach a sermon. You might go, hey, I don't have the Bible memorized. I don't know everything. I just know that I was blind, but now I see. That's who you are. You're the blind beggar, just like I was. I don't know what it's like to be physically blind, but I was spiritually blind, and now I see. So let me do this. I'm almost done. We got a couple of things we're going to do, but I just want you to listen to this. There's something worse than being blind, physically blind. There's something way worse than being physically blind. And I think that's probably one of the worst things that could happen to you is to lose your sight or like your hearing. Those are major things. And I sympathize with people I can just only imagine. But there's something way worse than that, and that's being spiritually blind. Spiritually blind. And there's people that don't have a relationship with God. They don't have any connectivity to God. and they're spiritually blind. And when I get up here and talk about that, it's like they don't even, like they're blind to it. They can't even comprehend it. Now, that's people who don't know God. It also applies, now listen, I'll just step on some of you guys' toes, some of you church people, but some of you guys come to church every week, and you're like sort of spiritually blind. In other words, you're like spiritually dull. And I don't mean to insult you like that, but if you're not really connected to God, and you say, there was a time when I gave my life to Jesus, but from then on, I don't really have a connection to God that much. Well, you are, just what I'm saying is you're missing out on so much of life. Now, let me give you this last thing, and then I'm going to show you a video after I set it up, so don't play the video yet. But living your best life means this: experiencing God in all of his fullness. Now, when I say that, I mean something deep and heavy with that. It's not just a surface level, oh yeah, I know God. I prayed a prayer when I was 6 years old, or I went to youth camp when I was a teenager, and I prayed, I went forward, and I got down at the altar, and I cried, and those are all great. I'm just saying, but that doesn't mean that you have a personal relationship with God necessarily. Because, so maybe you feel like you're not experiencing God in all his fullness. When you do that, it's like being blind and having your sight. It's like, do you guys remember when HD TV came out? And we used to have, when I was a kid, we used to have those big boxes that we would watch, right? We were talking about this the other day. There used to be like a TV repairman. Some dude would come from Maytag or Sears would come out and work on, you guys remember that? Come out and work on your TV and your appliances, your washer and dryer and all that stuff. Everything's changed so much. But now, like a few years ago, it came out with HD TV, right? High resolution TV. You ever watch that and then go back to watching a regular TV? You're like, that sucks. Like, we just need to throw that thing away. That's what it's like in life. So I want to show you this video. I was doing this on, I've actually showed the video we're going to watch about 4 or 5 years ago. It's a powerful thing. So I spent some time on Facebook or on YouTube this week looking at videos. I was going to try to find a video for you about, there's a lot of videos about people who have been born blind and had blindness their whole life. And then technology is such that they have created these kind of VR glasses that they put on, and it allows them for the first time to see. And they put these on, and they're just overwhelmed, and they see their loved ones for the very first time in their whole life. It's so crazy. And I couldn't find a video that really would fit, but there's also some videos, and this is what I'm going to show you in just a second, videos of, they've created these new glasses for people who are colorblind. I don't know, is anybody in here colorblind? Anybody? Okay. In the first service, Sam was here, and he's colorblind. And Sam Shade. And so he just, like, if you look at that right there, I'm trying to tell you, okay, Sam, that's green. He would just be like, okay, they all look the same. That's blue. Like, to try to understand, to try to explain to somebody with color blindness what green is like, it's like me trying to explain what God is like to spiritually blind people. You understand what I'm saying? Like they have no frame of reference to understand that that's different than that, and that there's a yellow in that, and that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it is. It's like I have no language for that. I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face, but you just have to experience it for yourself. And that's what it's like if you have spiritual blindness. You need to experience God in all of his fullness. So this video we're going to show you is about people who, they invented these glasses that when you put them on, if you're colorblind, you see colors just like you and I see colors. And I want you to, as we watch this, I want you to pay attention to their reaction. It's really overwhelming. Let's watch this.
It might, but some people see the effect right away.
Oh, it's different. It's different. Yeah. Oh my God, it's different. Yeah.
Okay.
It's different.
Turn around and look at the lights.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
What colors you see?
Those.
You see colors now?
my god, is this the real world? Is this actually what it looks like?
I am colorblind.
Try so that you'll see how it's supposed to sit.
It's so clear, I can't believe it. Savannah, what are we doing today?
I get to see color for the first time today.
And what's making that possible?
I'm gonna wear these Chroma glasses, and I'm really excited about it. I've been waiting for a long time. So,
And what color are you most excited to see?
I think I'm most excited to see purple. Oh my gosh! Look at the red. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! This is really cool. Oh my word! What color shirt?
They just don't work.
Can you see colors now?
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
I guess it does work that well.
Are you serious? I've been missing out on so much. Oh my gosh. What?
So what are the colors? What are the colors?
We're not in.
Signatures now?
We're not organized.
Sign a card in blue. Can you see them?
I don't. Oh my gosh. I guess they work. Orange, red, yellow, green, blue, purple.
Here, buddy. Can you see him? Thank you. Color.
Can you see my shirt?